Hello and a warm welcome to WION, broadcasting live from the British capital. This hour, you're with me, Casey Pilgrim. Let's get to the headlines. China warns the US and South Korea against provoking confrontation with North Korea. This after US President Joe Biden warned that Kim Jong-un's regime would be wiped out if Kim carried out a nuclear attack. The fifth batch of Indians are evacuated from Sudan and are on their way to Jeddah. Indian authorities also aiding the transfer of nationals of other countries as well, according to India's Foreign Secretary. China's Defence Minister Li Shangfu arrives in Delhi to attend the SCO Defence Ministers meeting. He's to hold a bilateral meet with his Indian counterpart. Satellite images show extended build-up of complex fortifications in Crimea by Russia, including along the Black Sea coastline. The images were released by US satellite imagery company Maxar. Kevin De Bruyne produces a masterclass as defending champions Manchester City humble league leaders Arsenal 4-1 to take control of the Premier League title race.
Manchester City look like
First to our top story today. A poor health record among British citizens is costing the country's economy billions of dollars. Well, a new report warns the cost of having most British workers poorer and sicker is around £43 billion a year. Well, the report published by the Institute for Public Policy Research says improving the UK's health is important for both the economy and the income of vulnerable groups. The think tank points at the long NHS waiting list, adding that the government should target big health improvements and work towards making the UK the healthiest country in the world within 3 decades. Well, the report also urged ministers to deal with a long-term sickness equivalent of the drive for net zero carbon emissions. Meanwhile, other data suggests the total number of days lost to sickness among the UK's workers has jumped to a record high. According to the Office for National Statistics, around 185.6 million days, are lost owing to sickness or injury. Now, this is the highest since the department started to document these numbers in 1995. The most common reason for absence in 2022 were minor illnesses, including coughs, colds, flu, and even diarrhea. Well, according to the report, poor health is to blame for more than half of the 3.3 million people who left paid employment, and almost a third of working-age UK citizens claim they have suffered from some form of long-term illness. Well, the absence, it costs the workers an average £2,200 in earnings, as several workers were forced to give up their jobs or cut back their hours. Well, in a report, it covered 7 years before and during the COVID pandemic. The think tank said that the health of the UK population is actually going backwards. Well, the UK's workforce remains smaller than before the pandemic. UK Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has taken steps to encourage more people to come back to employment. Well, to discuss this issue, joining me now here on the programme is Mark Brolin, an economist and an author as well, joining us live from London. Mark, good day to you.
Morning.
Well, not only is this an issue for people, of course, but for the British economy as well. How can this be resolved and how do we get here?
Well, I'm not sure how to resolve it yet, but I mean, the reason it has turned into a big issue is that in the 1970s, it was making up only 10% of the total budget. Now it's 20%. So it has doubled. So it's a major cost now. And in 2020, it actually overtook pensions as the largest single individual cost item. So that's one of the key reasons it's turning into such a big thing. But I think the second big point here is that it's Labour is having a lead over Conservatives. So Labour is going to trying to talk about this as much as possible ahead of the next election, whereas Conservatives are probably trying to shy away from this debate. So I think, but I mean, if we go back to the reasons, I don't think we have any proper good reasons why the UK is doing poorly now. We know that this has lots to do with mental issues and stress-related issues. But why UK is doing worse, I don't think we have a good answer to that.
Okay, so what do we do in this situation? Because it is a vicious spiral at the moment, because obviously we need people in work, earning money, and also paying into the tax system. Otherwise, the British economy is going to suffer as a consequence. Do you think that COVID is to blame for much of this, given that we have huge, enormous waiting lists, some 7 million people here in the UK still waiting for minor operations such as hip replacements or work on their knee? I mentioned there even coughs and colds are causing these problems. Do you think maybe we've got a situation now where people just need to go back to work, even if that is partially or part-time, some sort of situation where even if they do have a condition, they need to work part of the time? Could that be a solution, Mark?
I'm sure you're onto something here. COVID is definitely part of this story, since it has changed work patterns in a big way. So possibly a sort of work discipline factor, that of course that's a major issue. But in a sense, also, I think we have to accept that the cost item will be a lot higher over time since we live a lot longer. There's many factors in play here, but definitely COVID is one of them.
Yeah, I think you've made a really good point there about living longer. Of course, people are going to have more ailments the older we get, and also the retirement age as well is maybe creeping higher too. Mark, thank you so much indeed for giving us your input. We really appreciate that. That's Mark Rowland there, an economist and author here on WION Today.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to stay with UK news now, because the controversial UK illegal migration bill has made it through the lower house of the Parliament. Now, the clearance is touted as a big win for the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The legislation, it seeks essentially to bar entry of illegal migrants arriving in small boats across the Channel, besides a host of other measures as well, which we'll go through just now. Well, the House of Commons approved the third reading of the bill by 289 votes to 230. It was passed only after the Conservative government accepted several amendments from senior Tories. Well, Sunak has made stopping small boats arrivals from France one of the 5 key priorities. The illegal migration bill will prevent anyone from claiming asylum, and the asylum seekers will be deported either back to their homeland or to third countries like Rwanda. Well, critics and some charities have claimed the proposals are impractical and could criminalise the efforts of thousands of genuine refugees. Well, in the several amendments to the government also clarified the limited circumstances in which unaccompanied children could be deported, and a commitment to set out the safe and legal routes for asylum seekers to reach the UK. Well, other amendments included making it harder for deported persons to seek waiver of their ban on re-entry or gaining British citizenship. The bill moves forward to the House of Lords now. Well, for more of the details, our correspondent has been watching this here in London, Alice Izad. Alice, good to see you. So is this a big win then, a big achievement for Rishi, do you think?
It's definitely putting him on that political game playing that he has set out when he put those 5 priorities in place. It does apply to a lot of the UK where they really want to push out of these illegal asylum seekers, and that is what he has been listening to. So he is definitely looking at this as a winning chip in going forward with the elections. However, as you mentioned there, so the voting that occurred yesterday showed that Labour did not agree with many of of the amendments, and in fact didn't agree with the bill either. Now, again, the Conservative Party will be using this as a tool for them in the party politics, suggesting that Labour doesn't want to deal with the illegal refugees coming into the country. So it's likely that we'll be hearing about this ongoing. Now, this, as you rightly say, bill has to get through the House of Lords, and that's where it may come apart, because there isn't actually that much detail for us to look through to see exactly what will be going ahead and how they'll use this bill to deport asylum seekers coming into the country. And we did hear yesterday, of course, with those legal asylum seekers that came from Afghan, and they were having trouble within the UK, feeling that they were lost from the government. So this does seem like, even though these people are illegal coming over, that even if you do try and come legally or illegally, shall I say, you're going to have some kind of difficulties. But it does seem that that is what the general public want to hear. And Rishi Sunak is definitely pushing forward for them, going forward for the elections.
Absolutely right, going forward to the elections, as you say. Well, we'll have to wait and see what the House of Lords make of it all. Alex Isaac, thank you so much indeed, covering that issue of legal or illegal migration here in the UK for us. The Vatican has decided to introduce a historic new progressive reform. Well, Pope Francis has now granted women the right to vote at an upcoming meeting of bishops. Well, Pope Francis, he approved the amending the norms governing the Synod of Bishops to facilitate women getting the right to vote. The Vatican confirmed the modifications on Wednesday, emphasising the Pope's vision for women to play a greater role in church affairs. Well, the Synod is a periodical congregation of bishops from around the world that gathers to discuss issues relating to the global Catholic diaspora. Under the new changes, 5 Catholic sisters will join 5 priests as representations of various regional orders under the Church. The Pope is expected to choose the 70 priests, nuns, deacons and lay Catholics from a list of 140 people altogether. The Vatican has asked for half of them to be women with a right to vote. So far, the only woman known to be voting in the upcoming October meet is Sister Natty Beckhart. Well, Beckhart was appointed as the Undersecretary to the Synod's office in 2021. The Pope has been one of the most vocal voices in the Vatican for any kind of change. The new rules follow the Pope's decision last year to place women in decision-making positions at the Vatican. He also introduced a historic reform that will allow any baptised lay Catholic, including women, to head most Vatican departments.
Trovano Maria e Giuseppe e il bambino adagiato nella mangiatoia. Espressione di una fede matura e la Chiesa è madre.
Kenyan police continue to unearth corpses in shallow graves in the coastal town of Malindi. Relatives of people linked to a cult who have starved themselves have called the Kenya Red Cross, and they want to await news of their loved ones and are incredibly worried. Well, the death toll has risen sharply since the first cult death shocked the world, with a series of exhumations carried out. Our next report tells you more.
These are family members of the victims of the Kenyan hunger cult. On Wednesday, dozens of them were at a morgue in Malindi, identifying the remains of their loved ones. The morgue has been filling up rapidly since authorities started digging up human remains last week. Followers of the self-proclaimed Good News International Church are thought to have starved themselves to death in hopes of going to heaven. Stephen Mueti says he lost his wife and 5 children to the cult. He's among the many who have yet to identify their loved ones.
My children are dead. I know that for sure. The young men who told me about my children had been living in the forest since 2021. They told me the names of my children and they did not even know me. They told me my children had been starved to death.
Dozens of bodies have been found, and authorities say the death toll could rise further. The cult's leader, Paul Mackenzie, was arrested earlier this month following a tip-off. On Tuesday, Kenya's interior minister said at least 3 more people had been rescued alive.
Government of Kenya will do whatever it takes to make sure that we convict Mr. Mackenzie and all those who helped him perpetrate his heinous crimes.
Okay, let's enter the world of business now, because the tech giant Amazon has begun its 3rd round of layoffs. Employees in its cloud computing and human resources department have faced the axe this time. Well, the latest round of layoffs come a month after Amazon's CEO, Andy Jassy, announced that the company will axe 9,000 employees. Well, this was in addition to the 18,000 employed who were shown the door, and that was in November last year. Meanwhile, Amazon also announced that it's shutting down its Halo division that sells health and sleep trackers. The company stated that it will stop supporting Halo services from July the 31st and will fully refund Halo device purchases made in the preceding 12 months. However, it is not yet known how many employees will be affected by the closure of the Halo division. Okay, there is now some good news for Freddie Mercury fans. A collection of never-seen-before personal possessions from his London home will go under the hammer. Later this year, Sotheby's will host an expansive sale of an estimated 1,500 items, all belonging to the flamboyant, iconic lead vocalist of the band Queen. Well, these items will be sold over the course of the 6 auctions. Well, Mercury, who was born in India, lived much of his life at the Garden Lodge in Kensington, West London. The pop star, who died at the age of 45 due to the complications relating to AIDS, was an avid collector. His London home was preserved almost as it was by his closest friend, Mary Austin. Well, this is since his death, and that was over 30 years ago. So just as it was, the items to go on sale, they range from Mercury's dazzling stage costumes and handwritten lyrics to paintings and beautiful objects collected on his travels as well. It also includes the star's handwritten working lyrics to many of his hit songs. But the highlight of his auction is a crown, which is actually a replica of the St. Edward's crown, which will be worn by King Charles at his coronation on May the 6th. Accompanying that is a cloak made of red velvet, fake fur and rhinestones. Mercury wore the outfit for the final rendition of God Save the Queen, which ended the band's last live performance at Nebworth in 1986. Well, according to estimates, the total sale can bring in more than $7.4 million, although the lots are still being catalogued, so the total could change and it could be even bigger.